Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Whether or not you believe that humans are the cause of climate change, I think it's fair to say that most of us recognise that the effects of climate change are beginning to happen. And I tend to think of it more really like a forest fire. We can stand and argue about whether it's arson or whether it's caused by lightning, or we can get on with protecting ourselves against the potential implications of climate change for our businesses, for our homes, and really for our lives. This presentation is based upon work that my company, Parsons Brinckerhoff, did with other people like Giffords, WSP and the Highways Agency to come up with an organised approach to preparing a business for the effects of climate change. It's happening in all sectors. You'll see this kind of preparation going on in the private sector with some of our clients and others, certainly in the public sector through local authorities, and we're very, very pleased to be able to share this approach with you today. It's quite timely actually. A volcano goes up. We are filled with business interruption consequences, and that was something we couldn't plan for, and the interruption has been huge. Climate change is also going to cause business interruption, but we've got more of a lead time. We know this is happening, and it gives us much of a chance to do something about it. So the first challenge for any business really is to know your estate. Look at the current issues which are affecting the buildings that you deal with. If you look at the building on the top left, you can see an awful lot of air conditioning already going on before we get overheating. The other interesting thing about that picture is the window is open next to the air outtake, so clearly the system's not working too well. You need to understand things like the age of the building, the energy efficiency of that building, how much is it going to cost to heat, how much is it going to cost to cool, and display energy certificates are really helpful in that. Business criticality is also key, and that's really why I've put the picture of the chain up. How critical is that asset to the operation of your business? Where does it fit? If it got knocked out, could the rest of your business function? There's a big, big difference between an IT critical area and somewhere that you use, say, for storing wood before you use it somewhere else. So you really need to understand the significance of it. Is it a strategic location? Is it somewhere you absolutely need to be? Talking to some retailers, they would rather sort out the property but remain in the area where they have the high footfall. It's actually the location that's critical to them. They will have to do a lot more around that building because they want to stay there. And finally, be aware of the local circumstances that your assets face. You'll see local press, staff knowledge, and you can build on the approach that a lot of local authorities are taking in back mining local media. Where have floods been? Where have we seen high wind speeds? Where have we seen areas of brownout because the local electricity supply can't supply the energy that people need, say, in a heat wave? All this information helps you understand the assets you have. Then we start looking at the potential hazards. If you look at the UK Climate Change Impacts Programme, it gives you several scenarios for what's expected to happen in all the regions in the UK. And we are perhaps unique, certainly in Europe, and America doesn't have this either. We have this local knowledge. We can use that to extrapolate what's likely to happen in an area. So what are we likely to face in the assets? Are we looking at overheating? Are we looking at strong winds? Are we looking at perhaps lack of water availability in the future, particularly in summer when you might need it most? And what's likely to happen on severe weather events? And don't forget, we have a human mortality issue here as well as business interruption. In the last heat wave, there was a number of deaths in the UK attributed to this overheating, particularly in domestic properties. But we were aware, certainly in northern France, that a number of businesses also had similar issues and had to send staff home. At the moment, we don't have a top temperature for office and workspace. And the reason for that is historic, because people working in forges or working in bakeries and such like have to cope with high temperature. But there is increasing pressure to actually put a top working temperature on office space for sedentary activities, as well as a bottom working temperature. We may well see something happen on that in the near future. So when we've done this, we can start to identify the potential vulnerabilities. And on the screen here, you'll see some examples of the vulnerabilities that we might face. It's important to look at the building on the basis of the unit of space. If you use the whole building for the same thing, you can treat it as a whole building. If you use your building for different things, then the vulnerabilities will be very different for the different areas of space. And here's some examples of some of the things that have gone wrong recently. Air conditioning failures in the centre of London, in a sealed building in which you can't open the window. Very uncomfortable. And you pay a small fortune then to the portable guys with fans and such like who come in to fill the gap before the air conditioning can get back up again. We also saw examples of Woolworths, who unfortunately have now folded. their shops couldn't deal with the overheating, and a lot of their chocolate stock melted. I have a particular passion for chocolate, I noticed this, but you do see spoiled stock being an increasing issue. There's another issue of a company which took space in York. York floods pretty much every year, they're quite used to it, I used to work up there. And they've got this really nice building with a fantastic flood-resistant ground floor. Problem, the fire escape opened onto the area that floods and therefore couldn't be used. So they couldn't use the building, couldn't open the building, a risk that they really hadn't looked at. Another company I worked with who stored timber, which had been cured, and it was then inundated with water, completely unusable, had to throw the whole lot away. So we do need to identify these potential vulnerabilities, and it relates to the issues that might happen and the functions that go on within the building. You're not going to address all of the vulnerabilities you face, so it is important to apply a significance test. And we would usually work with the organisation to identify the showstoppers. What are the things that they absolutely can't manage without, or issues that would just mean the business can't function? But we'd often use a scoring matrix as well. The frequency of the risk. How severe is it likely to be if it happens? And what is the impact on the business itself? And it's from that we start to develop the mitigation adaptation plan. You don't have to do something with every risk either. It's important to note that there is an option to do nothing. The risk might simply be too small to deal with, or too insignificant to deal with. You might decide that you need to do more research. How would it actually affect your business? What could you do with it? Or you might decide that you're able to monitor this for a few years and see what happens. Bear in mind the risks of that though. Then it starts to get a bit more interesting. We can look at retrofitting the building. We're looking at adaptation of the building, the systems that are used within the building, insulation, controls, etc. A good engineering firm helps with this. You might also look at re-engineering. If your ground floor floods, can you use it for something else? Do you have to use it for the function it's used for now? Can you change the way that the space is used? Reduce the density of people, reduce the amount of IT, then you need less cooling. Can you look at changing systems? Can you look at getting people to work from home? Those of us that experienced the snow disruption recently, those businesses who have a working from home policy are set up with IT for people to work from home. It doesn't matter too much if you can't get to the building for a short period of time, so you can deal with it that way. The other option, and I think this is something that Joel and David will talk about a bit more, is to relocate. Simply give up on the space. It'll cost too much to sort out. The risk of interruption is just too big. And we are likely to begin to see a two-tier property market coming in, as some property simply becomes too expensive to run or very expensive to run, and people choose to move away from it. I strongly recommend though, don't buy a solution without knowing the risk. It's a bit like buying a new tyre for your car when the prop shaft's likely to break next week. You can patch it up, but you might be buying solutions for issues which you could do something cheaper for, or you've got other priorities. So going out and doing the shopping list of things you want to pick up, not necessarily a good idea without a strategic overview. It's an asset management plan, really, and some of the hints and tips in here. Be aware of long lead times. Some things take a long time to do. You want to smooth the cost and disruption for your business. It's often better to do things over the longer period. Prioritise your vulnerabilities, not just on the basis of cost. It might cost a lot to deal with a severe vulnerability, but if that happens, your business could be in real problems if you haven't dealt with it. And finally, plan. It's a plan, it needs monitoring, it needs updating. Cobwebs don't solve problems. If it goes on the shelf and sits there and you haven't reviewed what you're doing, frankly, you might as well not have bothered spending the money in the first place. So, I'll leave you with a homily, but I quite like this. If you don't plan, it's a total surprise when something goes wrong, which is good in some ways because you haven't worried about it, but you have an awful lot more to deal with. And I think it's interesting to see some of the businesses with more resilient supply chains in the last couple of weeks have dealt very well with the volcano problem. Others are suffering a lot more. You don't have to do anything, but your competitors quite probably are, and you may be nimble enough to cope or to take the risk. But check whether your investors can cope with that approach. Thanks.